cantor welcomes all of us with the singing of Hine Matov. This evening, we're also blessed to begin the bat mitzvah of Mia Labich. And so it's my honor to call upon our mother, Jessica, and her sister is welcome to come up, and her grandmothers that are here to present candlesticks to her and to help us with the lighting of the candles, the blessing for the candles for this Shabbat. Please rise.
Our God and God of our ancestors, may the rays of these Shabbat candles cast their glow upon the earth and bring the radiance of your light to all your creatures. Bless our daughter with your love and our homes with the spirit of Shabbat. Amen.
Baruch atah Adonai, Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kitshanu b'mitzvotav, v'tzivanu lehadlik ner, shel Shabbat.
And you may be seated. And I invite you to take your prayer books, our Sidurim, the Siddur Lev Shalem, and we turn to page 5. And we begin at the middle of the page, Shalom Aleichem Malchei Hasharet, Malchei Elyon.
Shalom Aleichem Malchei Hasharet, Malchei Elyon, Melech Malchei Amlachim, HaKadosh Baruch Hu, Boachem L'Shalom, Malchei Hashalom, Malchei
now let's turn to page 13. Sing to Adonai a new song. Sing to Adonai all the earth. Shir Adonai Shir Chadash.
שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בשרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בשרו מיום ליום ישועתו. ספרו וגויים וכבודו, בכל העמים נפלאותיו, כי גדול אדוני ומחולל מאוד. נורו על כל אלוהים, שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בשרו מיום ליום ישועתו. כי כל אלוהי העמים מלינים, ואדוני שמיים עשה, הוא בחדל לפניו. עוז התפארת במקדשו, שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בשרו מיום ליום ישועתו. יאללה לילה לילה יאללה לילה יאללה לילה לילה יאללה לילה יאללה לילה שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני שיר חדש, שירו לאדוני כל הארץ, שירו לאדוני ברכו שמו, בשרו מיום ליום ישועתו. שירו לאדוני, שירו לאדוני.
And now we turn the page, the middle of page 14. Yismu Hashemayim v'tagel haaretz.
ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלואי. ירם הים, ירם הים, ירם הים ומלואי. ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ישמחו השמיים, ותגל הארץ. Bottom of 20. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו כי קדוש אדוני אלוהינו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר קודשו. רוממו אדוני אלוהינו והשתחוו להר
Page 23, Come My Beloved, to welcome the bride. Let us greet Shabbat as she arrives. L'chado di likrat kala. And now let's take a moment and welcome those around you with a good Shabbos. And so now we welcome all those observing a yard site and all those in mourning to remain standing for the words of the mourner's Kaddish, which is found in our prayer books on page 30. Yitzgadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah v'yalma divrach yirutei v'yamlik machutei v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh dekol beit Yisrael ba'agalav izman kariv v'yimru amen. Yehei Shmei Rabbah Mevorach Leolam Omea Maya. Yitzbarach V'yishtabach, Pitzba'ar V'yishromah V'yitnaseh, V'yitadar V'yitaleh V'yitalal Shmei D'Kedusha B'richu. Le'ela Min Kol Berchata V'shirata, Tishbechata V'nechemata, Damiram V'yama V'yimru Amen. Yehei Shlama Rabbah Min Shemaya, V'chayim Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael V'yimru Amen. Osei Shalom Bimromav, Hu Ya'aseh Shalom, Aleinu V'yakol Yisrael, V'yimru, Amen. And now we ask everyone to rise for the Baruch Hu, as our Bat Mitzvah Mia leads us on page 39.
Baruch et Adonai HaMevorach. Baruch Adonai HaMevorach Le'olam Va'ed.
You may be seated. We continue with a prayer that recognizes God's love for us. He loved us so much, He gave us the Torah, this way of life. Ahavat Olam.
Ahavat olam על כן אדוני אלוהינו ושוכבנו וקומנו נשיח לחוקך עד עולם בית ישראל עמך אהבת תורה ומצוות חוקים ומשפטים אותנו לימדת ונשמח בדברי תורתך ובמצוותיך לעולם ועד כי הן חיינו ואורך ימינו ובכם נגע יומם ולילה ואהבתך אל תסיר ממנו לעולמים ברוך אתה אדוני אוהב עמו ישראל.
And now turn to page 41 for Shema.
Shema Yisrael, Adonai Eloheinu, Adonai Echad. Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha bechol levavecha uvechol nafshecha uvechol meodecha vechayu hadvarim ha'ele asher anochi mitzavecha hayam alevavecha veshinatam levanecha vedivartat ba'am veshivtecha beveitecha uvlektecha b'derech ushalchecha uvkumecha ushartam leot al yadecha vechayu letotafot beinenecha uktaktam al mezuzot beitecha uvisharecha.
We continue silently in Hebrew or English to the bottom of page 42.
Adonai Elohechem emet.
Who is like you, Adonai, among the mighty? Who is like you, adorned in holiness, revered in praise, working wonders? Michamocha, page 44.
Ve'amar
Shelter us in the shadow of your wings, for you, God, watch over and deliver us, and you, God, are sovereign, merciful, and compassionate. Hashkivenu, page 45.
Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu el Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu el Chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu el Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu el Chaim Ushmar Tzeiteinu Uvoreinu L'chaim u'shalom Me'ata ve'od olam. Sometimes I lay under the moon and I thank God I'm breathing. And then I pray, don't take me soon, 'cause I am here for a reason. Sometimes in my tears I drown, but I never let it get me down. So when negativity surrounds, I know someday it will all turn around, because all my life I've been waiting for, I've been praying for the people to say that we don't want to fight no more. There'll be no more war and our children will play. One day, one day, one day, oh, one day, one day, one day. Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu el Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu el Chaim Hashkivenu Adonai Eloheinu el Shalom V'hamidenu Malkeinu el Chaim ויפרוס עלינו סוכת שלומך, ברוך אתה אדוני, הבורא סוכת שלום עלינו, ועל כל עמו ישראל, ועל ירושלים.
And now we turn to page 46. V'shamru v'nei Yisrael. The people of Israel shall observe Shabbat, maintaining it as an everlasting covenant throughout all generations. Top of page 46.
V'shamru v'nei Yisrael et ha-Shabbat, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. ביני ובין בני ישראל אותי לעולם, אותי לעולם. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. כי ששת ימים עשה אדוני, עשה אדוני את השמיים ואת הארץ. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת, לעשות את השבת לדורותם ברית עולם. וביום השביעי שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש, שבת ויהי נפש. ושמרו בני ישראל את השבת,
Please rise.
Yid gadol ve'yid kadash shemei Rabba, amen. Ve'amad yivrach yirutei ve'yam malchutei. B'chayechon uvyomechon uv'chayetecho beit Yisrael. Ba'agala u'bizman kariv ve'imeru amen. Ba'agala u'bizman kariv ve'imeru amen. Amen. Yehi shmei Rabba mevara le'olam u'le'omaya yitbarach. Yitbarach ve'yishtabach ve'yitzpa'ar ve'yitzroman ve'yitnaseh ve'yitzhadar ve'yitzaleh ve'yitzhalal shemei dekudesha behu le'elam min kol birchata ve'shirata Tushmechata v'nechemata da'amiran ve'alma ve'imeru amen ve'imeru amen ve'imeru amen ve'imeru amen amen.
And now we rise. We continue standing. Continue standing as we pray silently with the silent Amidah, page 47 through page 52. Shalom Rav, Al Yisrael Amcha. Grant abundant, lasting peace to your people Israel and all who dwell on earth. Page 51.
Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amacha Tasim Leolam V'Shalom Rav al Kol Yoshvei Te'ever Tasim Leolam Shalom Rav al Yisrael Amacha Tasim Shalom Rav Yisrael Amcha Tasim Le'olam V'Shalom Rav Al Kol Yoshvei Tevel Tasim Le'olam Baruch Atah Adonai HaMevarech et Amo Yisrael B'Shalom. Ose Shalom V'Imramav. Ose Shalom V'Imramav. Hu yaseh Shalom. Hu yaseh Shalom. Hu yaseh Shalom Aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down. Ose Shalom V'Imramav. Ose Shalom V'Imramav. Hu yaseh Shalom. Hu yaseh Shalom. Hu yaseh Shalom Aleinu. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down, bring peace down. May the one who makes peace bring peace down.
And now we pray, bless those in need of healing with Refuah Shlema, Misha Berach.
May the swords of strength, we bless the ones before
And you can be seated now as we turn to page 54 for the Kaddish Shalem.
יתקדש שמי רבה, ועמדי ורקירותי, והמליך מלכותי, בחייכון ובמכון ובחיי וכל בית ישראל, בגלה בזמן קריב, ואמרו אמן, יהי שמי רבה מבורך, לעולם ולעולמי עולמי. יתברך וישתבח ויתבר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתנער ויתעלה ויתעלה, שמי קודשי. בריחו לעילה מנחה בחצה ושירתה, תושבחת ונחמתה, דמירון מעלמה, ואמרו אמן. תתקבל צלותהון ובתנכו ישראל, קודם אבון ושמיה, ואמרו אמן. יהי שלום הרבה מן שמיה, וחיים על הנביא כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, ויעשה שלום עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן.
Good Shabbos, everyone. Some of you may know that this month, the month of May, is Mental Health Awareness Month in the United States. And so, honor of this occasion, we are welcoming Dr. Elizabeth McInvale to Congregation Beth Yeshurun. Dr. McInvale is a very impressive individual. Let me tell you a little bit about her. She is the director of the McLean OCD Institute at Houston, a Harvard Medical School affiliate, where she maintains an active clinical research and leadership role. Her clinical interests focus on OCD, anxiety disorders, mental health stigma, and access to mental health care. She's the founder of the Peace of Mind Foundation, a nonprofit foundation dedicated to OCD. She also operates OCDchallenge.org, a free self-help website for OCD, which is live in 6 languages and serves thousands of individuals. She was the first ever national spokesman for the International Obsessive Compulsive Foundation and now serves on their board of directors. She received her bachelor's and master's degree in social work from Loyola University in Chicago and her PhD in social work at the University of Houston. And to top it off, she's currently pursuing her MBA from Kellogg's School of Business Management in Northwestern University. Dr. McInvale engages in advocacy, clinical work, research, and teaching related to OCD and anxiety disorders. She's a renowned speaker on both the local and national level, speaking on behalf of OCD, mental health, and mental illness and mental health stigma. She's received numerous awards for advocacy and impact on the mental health field and currently serves as a director on 5 boards. She is truly internationally known and recognized for her clinical work and also for advancements in the OCD field. She's dedicated to giving a voice to the voiceless and is grateful for a career which allows her to improve the lives of those living with the mental illness every day. We're honored to welcome her and her brother and sister-in-law, James and Amanda. I think your nephews just left the room, but that's okay. Please welcome Dr. Elizabeth McInvale.
Thank you for having me. It is an honor to be on a stage of a place where so many of us search for hope, help, and hopefully healing. It is 2023, and I'm so excited to say that in the past 7 days, I've now been able to speak to large Christian churches and a congregation, which to me is evidence alone of the work that we're starting to do. When I grew up here in Houston, Texas, in the suburbs, and what you would call a pretty normal lifestyle. I was a competitive gymnast, did pretty well academically, and had friends from the outside. There's nothing you would say was wrong. I had little quirks. I would track the weather and tell my parents if there was a tornado in Topeka, and I would say things like, "There's a tornado in Topeka, you can't leave the house today." My parents' response would be, "Well, we live in Houston, we gotta go to work." Or I would start at the book, I remember I was reading the book Matilda, and I would start at page 0 every time. And my mom, I remember, turned to me at one point and said, "Liz, you can use a bookmark." And I couldn't shake the feeling of starting in the middle, of not starting fresh. It just didn't feel right, it felt uncomfortable. But again, those were quirks. There was nothing else that would have made you say something's wrong, we need to do something. Until we had to do something. And it was really clear that something was wrong. By the time I was about 13 years old, my OCD started to impact every area of my life. I was dealing with these unwanted, scary, horrific, intrusive thoughts, and I thought that if I didn't do these repetitive behaviors or actions, something terrible would happen to the people that I love. The problem is that in school, in our house, in my community of faith, we didn't talk about mental health. And so I was terrified of what was going on, and I was even more terrified of what that would mean or what would happen if people found out. And so I continued to suffer in silence. And what we know about mental health is that if you suffer in silence, your illness will get worse. By the time I was about 14 years old, I was going on a camping, trip. It was a school trip to this camp called Mo Ranch. I was in the 7th grade. My sister Laura was a year older than me. She was going to DC, and so my parents had decided I would go stay at my friend Taryn's house, and my mom would take my sister to the airport in the morning to go to DC. And that night, I started having all these thoughts, and I started asking my parents all these questions. Well, what if when I go to Taryn's house, Mom, they put their dog in a kennel? What if something happens to the dog? Do you think that's going to mean it's my fault? Or what if we packed some of the same clothes, and she's going to think I'm copying her? And if I'm copying her, is she going to be mad at me? And if she's mad at me, then what happens? And will it be my fault? And my mom's immediate reaction was, well, then Liz, just don't go to Taryn's house. Like, your brother will take you to school in the morning. And James, I don't know if he remembers this, but my mom talks about this being such an important day for her. Because James took me to school that day, and not to age ourselves, but we used to have CDs, that you would use to listen to music. And James asked me for a CD, and I remember I was putting it in and out. I was counting. I was doing these prayer rituals, and I was trying to get to a right number, something that felt okay. And James didn't really say anything. He kept driving. He dropped me off for this school trip. But what my mom talks about is that was the first time she had ever felt validated by someone else. James came home that night after school and said to my mom, Mom, I don't know what's going on with Liz, but she was doing some really weird behaviors, and it felt really strange. And my mom had been noticing this slowly and surely. She had been noticing little things, but she didn't know who to talk to, and she didn't know what was happening. And, it's hard as a parent to know, when should I be concerned versus, am I making too big of a deal, or is this my own anxiety? And so they kept me, I shouldn't say they kept me, I stayed at this school ranch trip thing for 5 days. My mom came to pick me up on that Friday. And she talks about how when I got off the bus that day, she had this pit in her stomach. And at that moment, she immediately knew this is something that's so much more. I'd lost about 5 or 10 pounds that week. I didn't eat. All these contamination fears were coming up. I didn't shower because it was community showers, so I looked really like you could see from the outside at this point that my mental health condition was starting to be visible externally. And my mom, I remember we got home that night, and the only thing I could say to her is, please don't make me go back to school. And her response was, well, Liz, I won't make you go back if you tell me what's going on. But if you don't tell me what's going on, I can't help you. And I remember crying and shaking. I was on the floor of my room, and I remember saying to my mom, Mom, I don't know what's happening, but I feel like I have all these thoughts, and if I don't do these rituals, something bad's going to happen. And her response as a mom was, well, that's not true. Nothing bad will happen. And I just couldn't shake the feeling. I couldn't take the risk. And I was so lucky that night to realize my champion would be my mom. And so we started searching for help. We started, we live in the world's largest medical center is right here in our backyard. You would think access to good care would be easy and accessible, and it wasn't. We continued to be told that they had never seen a case as severe as mine, there wasn't help available for me, and that we should accept that I'll live in a mental health hospital the rest of my life. My dad talks about being grateful that he is a seller, not a buyer, and he wasn't buying that story. And so, but my parents kept searching, and I think what I was still always really baffled by is that while they're out searching for help, you have a kid continuing to fall apart. And the second C I'll talk about that's critical besides a champion is you have to have a community. I don't know how much Amanda and James knew. I'm sure everything at that point, but actually when they were about 16 or 17, they had to pick me up every day from school. And my mom required them to stay with me until she could get home because she knew I wasn't safe to be alone. And what you see is that this family system of not just the individual, but my sibling and, Amanda are now impacted just as much in different ways because now they have a new responsibility of caretaking. But my mom will tell you that without our community, without our village, she could not have done it. And so we kept searching. I kept getting more and more sick, and I was taking about 6 to 8 hour showers at this point. I was 15, and my mom would have to pull me out of the shower. I couldn't get dressed. I thought an entire side of my body was contaminated, so I would only use one side of my body and wear one pair of jeans and one shirt because I thought the other shirts were all bad and they had bad colors and I might not go to heaven. And I started to do everything in multiples. And for a while I stopped at the number 7 because it felt good, but then for some reason I found something wrong with all these different numbers, and eventually I stopped at the number 42. Makes no sense because I was so afraid of the number 6, and 4 plus 2 is 6, but it was my mom's age at the time. So don't ask me why. It felt like the number I needed to do every single thing in. I would wake up in the morning. I would sit up and down 42 times. To get out of bed, I would turn 42 times. I would move my left foot 42 times to take one step. And by the time I'd get to the bathroom, I was exhausted, sweating, crying. I would wash my hands. I would turn the faucet on 42 times, get 42 pumps of soap, rinse my hands off 42 times, turn the faucet back off 42 times. And my OCD decided to say that's one set, you should do 42 sets of 42. And so overnight, our life, not just my life, our family's life, was my mental illness. And for me, a congregation and a champion were the two things that saved my life. They're the two reasons I'm standing here today. I can remember sitting in the pews of my congregation crying and praying for peace. I think the one thing we all know is that there is no greater gift on earth than the gift of peace. And for those of us who are tormented by our thoughts, peace doesn't feel like a reality. And so we kept searching for help, and eventually my parents stumbled across a clinic called the Menninger Clinic, which is an inpatient program. It was in Topeka, Kansas at the time. And so they put me on a plane. I was 15, and we went to Topeka. When we got to Topeka, I didn't think I was staying. I did everything I could to try to convince my brother, my whole family, I shouldn't say just one person, that I didn't need to stay. And my sister talks about a moment that she still struggles so much with. And it's when we were on the way to treatment, when I continued to cry and apologize. I continued to tell them how sorry I was. How sorry I was for the burden I had become, for the pain I had inflicted, and that I would try to do better. Laura talks about how she can't comprehend that because if I had been diagnosed with cancer, I wouldn't be apologizing for my diagnosis. But for some reason, because it's a mental health condition, we feel like it's our fault. We feel like we did this or we're doing this. And in 2023, my goal is that we can start to treat the brain like we treat the body. And so the next critical C is that you have to find effective care. And so we finally found Menninger, and my parents went to leave me, and I was terrified, I was vomiting, I was sick, and I was begging them not to leave me at this place. My dad and my sister were completely convinced, and in fact, they were actually really upset with my mom that she was still willing to say she'd leave me. But again, having a champion and having somebody who knows what you need more than you know is a critical piece of this journey. And I got amazing care, and it saved my life. In many different ways, I still came back and relapsed and struggled, but one other thing happened that day. I was crying, I was so sick, and I remember I sat down on the couch at the clinic, and I looked over. I was sitting next to a young, thin, redhead girl named Amy. And she looked at me, and all she said is, "It's okay, I cried too." And for the first time in my life, I felt a sense of community. I felt this need that was starting to be filled, to where there was this understanding that I wasn't alone. Now, her and I have different diagnoses and different struggles and different treatment courses, but it was a recognition that the pain I was dealing with, I wasn't alone in that. And it is so powerful. And so I got effective treatment. It changed and saved my life. I came back and really continued to struggle on and off for the next 15 years of my life. I started to believe and accept that my mental illness was a part of me. It was something that would define me. And in fact, I thought the best I could ever get was to learn to function with really bad OCD. And that is a message we send every day to those individuals that are struggling. That if you can function, you're winning, right? When I got a job, it was like, oh my gosh, you got a job. This is amazing, Liz. Versus like, hey, like if you're still struggling, we can still get you and hope and work towards freedom, not functioning. But what happened is during this time, my dad, being who he is, threw me into advocacy. And he really had this belief that, you know, we can take this pain and turn it into a purpose. And so we started telling our story publicly. And it was such a huge moment for me because it was the first time in my life where this challenge made sense, where my pain had a purpose, and where I could take my struggle and turn it into a strength. I could start to make sense of why I had to deal with this battle, right? There was something good that could come out of it, and it was helping other people. And for me, I think that's a critical piece in our life. How can we take our own struggles and turn them into strengths so that they don't define us in this negative way, but instead they can lead us resiliently to others and to service, which is undoubtedly the greatest gift we can give ourselves, is giving to other people. And so I guess it's 6 days ago or 7, I don't know, 5 days ago, I'm not good at math. The degrees don't say much, obviously, was Mother's Day. And I'm going to read a letter that my mom wrote to me because I think it helps you see and understand how moms can feel when we think about those people that have to champion for those of us when we can't be our own. It says, Liz, a year has passed since I made the hardest decision, and I hope one of the best that I'll ever have to make. When I look back on this past year, I'm so glad to have been so lucky to have a daughter as strong as you are. A year ago, I felt so desperate. I cried every day over you, frustrated that I was unable to help you and afraid that the decisions I would make, like sending you to Menninger, wouldn't be the right ones. It was something I anguished over for weeks, but I knew I couldn't help my daughter get better. I hoped I was putting her somewhere that would know what to do. I still cry at times when I think of what you went through. I feel sick every time I think of you telling me that you thought we were putting you in that hospital forever. I hope you can forgive my ignorance on how we did it, causing you a despair a child should never have to face. I look every day at you and am so very proud of you and what you've done and continue to do daily to be the person that you are. Everyone always acts like you're cured because you're doing so well, but I know you still fight your battles every day. When I look at you, I know that, and my heart almost breaks sometimes when I think of how hard you have to work. You are truly so unbelievable. I want you to know, Liz, how much I love you, and I speak for your father as well. He may not show it the same way. I love you more than I think you'll ever know. I love you so much that love is what kept me strong enough to send you to Menninger. I knew in my heart that I had to love you enough to break my own heart and risk everything to help you. I thank God every day it was the right decision. You're such a wonderful daughter, and you never cause us any grief. I want to let you know how proud I am and how much I love you. An hour doesn't pass in the day that I don't think about how strong you are, how well you fight your daily battles, and I love you every second of it. I want you to remember that every minute of every day, I love you and I'm proud of you, and I'm here whenever you need it. My mom is the first person I still call when I'm struggling and the first person I send a message to when I'm proud of something. I thank God every day that I had a champion that I needed when I didn't know I needed it. And today I'm here standing as someone who, my entire life, I said I would never have kids because I couldn't imagine the thought of my own children potentially having anxiety or OCD one day. I have a wild 2-year-old and 10-month-old. And what I can tell you is that when people still say to me, Liz, what was the moment that shifted? What was like the thing for you that made it click? I've struggled my entire life. But the second I had a kid, I realized there was a purpose so much bigger than me. It is our job to help people find their purpose. Because when we do, we're fighting for something other than ourselves. And the power in that is untangible. It's critical that we have a community, a champion, good care, and a congregation. That can be found right here. Don't lose sight of that. Help create that. Help lead people to that, because it can change and save your life, just like it did mine. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. McInville, for sharing your incredible story. I think everyone here appreciates you and your honesty and coming out like this. It's just so brave, and I hope that you helped change some people here tonight and let people know that they're not alone. So thank you so much for your bravery in speaking to us tonight. And on behalf of the synagogue, I'd like to give you a few token gifts of our appreciation. Number one, I know how much your family is charitable and loves philanthropy and helping those that cannot help themselves. So we have a tzedakah box, and tzedakah in Hebrew means charity. So I know how much that means to you and your family, so I hope that you can put this in your house, fill it with some money, and give it to the charity of your choice. The second thing we have for you is a hamsa. And a hamsa is a protective sign. It brings its owner happiness, luck, health, and good fortune, and it also comes with a prayer. It reads, "Let no sadness come to this heart. Let no trouble come to these arms. Let no conflict come to these eyes. Let my soul be filled with the blessing of joy and with peace." And we hope that is true for you and your whole family. And thank you so much again for being here.
Thank you, David, and thank you, Elizabeth. And now let's return to our service as we rise for the Aleinu, page 56.
Aleinu leshabeach ladon hakol, la tegedu la leotse breshi, שלא חסנו כגויי הארצות, ולא שמנו כמשפחות האדמה, שלא שמחלקנו ככם, וגורלנו ככל המונם, ואנחנו קוראים ומשתחווים ומודים לפני מלך מלכי המלכים הקדוש ברוך הוא, שהוא נשמיים ויוסד הארץ, ומשה ויקרוק בשמיים ממעל, ושבינתי זו בגבהי מרמים, הוא אלוהינו אין עוד, אמת מלכנו אפסו אותו, ככתוב בתורת, וידעת הים וחשבות אל לבבך, כי אדוני הוא האלוהים בשמיים ממעל, ועל הארץ מתחת אין עוד. ונאמר וחי אדוני למלך על כל הארץ, ביום ההוא יהיה אדוני אחד, ושמו
And now, while we're standing, let us recite the blessing for counting the Omer. We turn in our prayer books to page 63. Together, Baruch Atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam, asher kiddushanu b'mitzvotav v'tzivanu al sefirata Omer. Baruch Atah, our God, sovereign of time and space, who has provided us with the path to holiness, the observance of mitzvot, and has instructed us to count the Omer. And we turn for this night's count, beginning this evening on page 70. Hayom arba'av arba'im yom, shechem shisha shavuot, ushnei yamim la'omer. Tonight begins the 44th day of the Omer. Amen. And now we invite all those observing a yard site and all those in mourning to remain standing for the words of the mourner's Kaddish. This week at Beth Yeshurun, we offer condolences to the families of Cindy Weiss, Max Kowalski, Stephen Marcus Schwartz, Nanelle Listengarten, and Leslie Harper Nadoff. Page 58. Yitgadal v'yikadash shemei rabbah, v'yalma divrach yiruteh v'yamlik machuteh, v'chayechon v'yomechon v'chayeh dekol beit Yisrael, v'agalav izman kari v'yimru amen. Yehei shmei rabbah mivarach le'olam omea maya, yitbarach v'yishtabach v'yitba'ar v'yitroma v'yitnaseh, v'yitadar v'yitaleh v'yitalal shemei dekudusha b'richu, le'ela min kol berchata v'shirata, tushbechata v'nechemata, da'amiram v'yalma v'yimru amen. Yehei shlama rabba min shamaya, v'chayim aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru amen. Osei shalom bimromav, hu ya'aseh shalom, aleinu v'yakol Yisrael v'yimru amen. And you may be seated. So this week at Beth Yeshurun, we have a few anniversaries to celebrate. First, celebrating their 28th anniversary, Lisa and Philip Turboff. And one extraordinary blessing this past year for the two of you is that you helped Lisa, thank God, fight and win her battle with breast cancer. Baruch Hashem. May God continue to bless the two of you with peace, happiness, and good health. Happy 28th anniversary. Celebrating their 29th anniversary, Andrea and David Stein. You feel very blessed. Your family is happy and healthy. Your children are Julie's in Dallas and Jonathan's in Austin, and thank God they're both doing well. And you also feel very fortunate to see the success that our congregation has had over the last year and has been rewarding for the two of you. We agree. Mazel tov on your 29th anniversary. Celebrating their 34th wedding anniversary, Vivian and Julian Levine. Mazel tov. And as you celebrate 34 years, the best thing that happened to you this past year is that you spent time with each of your 4 children, 3 grandchildren, and 3 great-grandchildren. And we know you're extremely grateful for your beautiful family. Only continued blessings as you celebrate 34 years of marriage. Mazel tov. And celebrating their 40th anniversary, Barbara and Jeffrey Kozlov. Mazel tov. I think the greatest blessing would be this past Thanksgiving, your entire family gathered, making it the first time since COVID for 3 years that everyone was together. And it's great to see your family only growing in strength and happiness. May God all continue to bless you as you celebrate 40 years of marriage. Mazel tov. And watching online from Dallas, celebrating their 52nd anniversary, Shirley and Larry Strauss. And they would say the best thing that happened this past year is getting to watch our services and seeing their son lead services. Yes. So a few announcements to share with you this evening. To begin, I'm going to call upon my colleague, Rabbi Fort.
One last plug for our very last Rosh Chodesh Jewish Women's Celebration. It's going to be on Sunday at 1:30. If you like ice cream, and if you like making your own wreath that you can decorate the house with, perfect for the holiday of Shavuot, perfect if you're a Jewish woman. So come together and join other Jewish women and myself. I'm also a Jewish woman. On Sunday at 1:30, it's our very last for this Jewish and programmatic year. We'll start back up again in the fall. Additionally, something that I think almost none of y'all knew is that this whole past year we have had a cohort of young Jewish, obviously, professionals who are members of our congregation, all young. I don't think we had a person who's over 40, all members here, and all who wanted to know more about how Beth Yeshurun is run. It's so great being able to be in your seat, and you look up here and you see, oh, they got some rabbis and cantor, and the board president does a thing probably, but there's so much that goes into how Beth Yeshurun runs, and these dozen young folks from all different walks of life, all different backgrounds, want to spend one Sunday a month, all year, learning about how Beth Yeshurun works. They met with all the clergy, they met with our staff, they met with our board, they learned about how the school is indirect, they learned how maintenance works, they learned everything about this shul, and now most of them are graduating. Some are graduating to board positions, some will be joining committees, all of them are going on to leadership positions in our community, and it's so exciting to see the next generation of young leadership here, not quite that young, almost that young, wait a year. And so to recognize them, we had everyone come over for a little oneg before. Almost everyone was there, but because they're younger folks, they've got very young children. So very few of them have made it this far in the service. But if you were a part of the Sulam Young Leadership Incubator, I do ask that you rise and let me embarrass you by having everyone clap and recognize your achievement, all the hard work you put in this year to learn about Beth Yeshurun and to be greater leaders in our community. So thank you. The few, the proud. We will see all of you for sure in the future. Thank you so much for all of your time this year. And thank you to your families for giving it to us.
Thank you, Rabbi Fort. This upcoming Thursday night begins Shavuot. We're having a Shabbat sleep under for our families at 5:30. In the beginning at 7 p.m., we're welcoming almost every single non-Orthodox rabbi in the community to be here for a Tikkun Leil Shavuot beginning at 7 p.m. That's my colleagues from Beth Israel, Brit Shalom, Emmanuel, or Ami, Houston Congregation for Reform Judaism, beginning at 7 p.m. There'll be study sessions led by all the cantors and all the rabbis from all those congregations. And if you stay until the very end, around 11 o'clock, we'll have an ice cream bar and cheesecake. It's open to the entire community. It should be a wonderful way to celebrate the giving of the Torah. That's this Thursday night beginning at 7 p.m. And of course, Shavuot continues that Friday. And then Saturday morning, a week from tomorrow, is Yizkor. And that will be followed by our annual Blintz Brunch. So that's a week from tomorrow. Most importantly, this Sunday is our annual meeting. And at 6 p.m., we'll have an opportunity to thank our outgoing president, David Stein, and welcome our new president, Lori Herzog, and we'll continue the celebration of dinner following the meeting. So we have a lot to celebrate this Sunday at 6 p.m. We'd love to see all of you there, and I know our congregational president wanted to share just a few words this evening.
Thank you, Rabbi Strauss, for giving me just a few minutes here tonight. So as he just mentioned, our annual meeting will be taking place this Sunday, and I hope to see many of you there. That means this Shabbat will be my last one as your president, and I wanted to tell you what an honor and a privilege it has been for me. My wife, Andrea, she and I look forward to Friday nights when we see and greet so many of you here each week. I can promise you that's not going to change, and we still plan on being here every Shabbat. On Sunday, I will review all that our synagogue has accomplished over the last year, but one of the highlights has been the hiring of our incredible team of Cantor Rachel Goldman and our accompanist, Julie Sachs. To requote what I said on the holidays, yes, that's our Goldman Sachs team. And I got to give credit to Julie because that was her joke. I'm just stealing it. Thank you, Julie. So I think we can all agree that they have really brought back life into our Shabbat services. So thank you again to both of you for all you do. Also to our incredible rabbis, Brian Strauss, Steve Morgan, and Sarah Fort. What an honor it has been for me to share the Bima with you for these last few years. But most importantly, I want to thank all of you for your support and for coming back here on Shabbat to Congregation Beth Yeshurun, our spiritual home. Thank you so much for everything. I look forward to seeing you guys out there.
So you can remain standing now as we prepare to end our service. So remain standing as we welcome all of our children up to the Bima, and we especially, and most importantly, welcome all of Mia's family. And let's give a big round of applause to our wonderful bat mitzvah, Mia Lavage, for starting out tonight and doing such a beautiful job. And let's call upon all our children to the Bima and all of Mia's classmates and friends. And we say to our sons, Yisimcha Elohim Kefraim Kemenashe, and to our daughters, Yisimech Elohim Kesara Rivka Rachel Leah. May God bless all of our children with peace. And now let's remain standing for the Kiddush.